A great salute to all my countrymen and all my viewers on the behalf of my police department. So friends, as I told in my last video that I will create every single video on this topic, the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. I will cover up all the chapters from 1 to 20 in English language. Why? Because my friends, you will have to understand the importance of this English language. How much important this language is. It has already been declared a official language of our country. And secondly, here, whenever we face any of the letter there in our offices or there in our police stations, secondly, whenever we treat our children, whenever we teach our children, whenever we cover up their syllabus, then I think you just find that every single subject they are dealing with is in English subject, except only for Hindi subject. So friends, it is very much mandatory for every single individual of our country that they must have that much knowledge that they can understand that English language easily. So first of all, today I will discuss about chapter number 2, which talks about the punishments, where we will discuss about how many types of punishment are there and what are the provisions if any accused do not pay the amount, the fine which was imposed by that particular court. So first of all, we will talk about section number 4, which was earlier discussed in IPC in section number 53. It talks about the types of punishment, how many types of punishment are there. So in IPC, there were 5 types of punishment, but now, Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, the types of punishment are 6. Because community service, this is also, you can call a punishment, so it has been added in our new law. So I will discuss about all these punishments which are described here in section number 4 of Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. First of all, it is death penalty. Second one is imprisonment for life. Third one is imprisonment. Either it can be rigorous or it can be simple. Fourth one is forfeiture. Fifth one is if any court impose any fine on you, then it is fifth part. Sixth one is community service, which is being added now in our new law. So under this community service, a person can be bound to just water the plants, to just take and care of any temple. So there are so many parts of any community service. And whatever I discussed, how many parts of the punishment are there, that are described here in section number 4 of Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. Now I will discuss over section number 5, which was earlier discussed in IPC in section number 54 and 55. That is commutation of sentence, means आपकी सजा की माफी. A appropriate government means any appropriate government where you are residing in and under whose jurisdiction you are staying. Like if you are staying in any state, then the supervision of state is there, and if you are living there in any union territory or means under the supervision of that central government, then that appropriate government is free to commute that sentence from death penalty to life imprisonment, from life imprisonment to 7 years of imprisonment, from 7 years to 10 years of imprisonment to 3 years of imprisonment, and if a person is liable of imprisonment of 3 to 7 years, he may be imposed with fine. And one more thing, if a person is titled with rigorous imprisonment, then the punishment shall be commuted with a simple imprisonment. Means कहीं भी जहाँ फांसी की सजा होगी वहां उसको लाइफ इम्प्रिजनमेंट कर दिया जाएगा, जहां भी उसकी लाइफ इम्प्रिजनमेंट की सजा है उसको 7 साल तक कर दिया जाएगा, जहां से 7 साल की से 10 साल की सजा है उसको 3 साल कर दिया जाएगा, और जहां 3 साल से 7 साल की सजा है उसको फाइन तक उसको मीन्स सीमित कर दिया जाएगा. इसके अलावा जो रिग्रेस इम्प्रिजनमेंट है, जो कठोर कारावास है, उसको सिंपल कारावास में बदल दिया जाएगा. So now move on to section number 6, which talks about the limit of life imprisonment. Means if you are convicted with the life imprisonment, then how many years you will have to stay there in the jail. So let me tell you कि if it is being given there कि a person will remain there in the jail till his death, then it is another life imprisonment. Otherwise, there are so many cases in Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, there are so many sections where it is described there कि life imprisonment shall be convicted to that particular accused, where there is such type of punishment, there we will consider कि एक life imprisonment will be considered as 20 years of imprisonment. So from today onwards you will have to just consider that thing कि life imprisonment, आजीवन कारावास को हमेशा हम 20 साल के कारावास से समझेंगे. Now move on to section number 7. It talks about how much, means if you are getting any punishment, then which type of punishment you are going to, get there in that jail, either rigorous or simple. So if it is decided there, if it is described there, if it is mentioned there in the section that that particular accused will be awarded with rigorous imprisonment, or that particular accused will be awarded with simple imprisonment, then he will follow the same. Otherwise, if it is not given there in the particular section, then that court or then that magistrate is free to award any type of punishment, either rigorous or simple imprisonment, to that particular accused. Now move on to section number 8, which is described there in IPC from section number 63 to 70. And here we will discuss all those sections here in section number 8, part 1 to 7. So in section number 8, part 1, if it is described that 2500 rupees will be fined, then he will pay only 2500. But if it is not described there, if it is not mentioned there how much amount of fine a accused will have to pay to that court, then in that case, that court is free to impose any amount of fine on that particular accused. In part number 2, if a accused do not pay the amount of fine, then he will get punishment. How much punishment we will discuss in part number 3. So it is given here in section number in part number 2 of section number 8, that if in default of payment of fine, if any accused do not pay any amount of fine, then he will be awarded with another punishment, means except a punishment which he was given earlier by that particular court. So he will get punishment other than that particular punishment. In part number 3 of section number 8, we will read that in the case of default of fine, if he do not pay any amount of fine, then he will get 1/4 of the total punishment which is given there or which is described there in that particular section. Like in theft cases, we can get punishment of 3 years. So if in the case of non-payment of fine, a person will get punishment of 9 months, because 1/4 36 months, 1/4 9 months, he will get punishment of 9 months. Now in part 4, it is described that what type of punishment he will get in the case of non-payment of fine. So it is very simple that if he is facing that rigorous imprisonment, he will continue with that rigorous imprisonment. If he is facing that simple imprisonment earlier, then he will continue that with that simple imprisonment. Now let's come on to part number 5 of section number 8. It tells us how much amount of fine will be there, or how much amount of punishment will be there if a person do not pay the amount of fine. So if a person do not pay the amount of fine less than 5,000 rupees, then a 2-month imprisonment will be awarded to that particular person. And if a person do not pay the amount of fine more than 5,000 and less than 10,000, then he will get punishment of 4 months. And if a accused, he is awarded or he is just fined for less more than 10,000 rupees, then in every single case that accused will be fined or that accused will be imposed with 1 year of imprisonment. So I think you all are clear with this point. Now let's move on to section number 8, part number 6, where if a court imposed any amount of fine, or if a court imposed any amount of that punishment on you, and if you are capable, if at that time you are not capable enough to just pay that amount of fine, and after some time you have that much amount of fine, then you can pay that fine and you will be just terminated out of that punishment. Okay. And one more thing, if you are fined with 5,000 rupees and you have 2,500 with you, so you will be awarded with only 1 month of punishment. Because as I told you that if you do not pay 5,000 rupees as a fine, then you will get punishment of 2 months. But if you have paid half of the fine, then you will get only half of the punishment, that is only 1 month. Now move on to section number 8, part number 7. It is rightly stated that if a person who there are so many cases where you will have to be forcefully you will have to pay that amount of fine, acid attack cases, in domestic violence cases, in dowry cases, it is very mandatory for you to just pay that amount of fine. So in means from the starting of that punishment and till 6 years you will have to pay that amount of fine, and if you do not pay, the competent court will attach your property and they will recover all the money, all that fine from your property. And in case of your death, if anyhow or if any unfortunately you die, then also that competent court will just recover up all that money out of your that property. Now let's move on to section number 9, which talks about the limit of the punishment in several offenses. If you are committing any of the offense, like if I am slapping a person one time and if I slapping a person 50 times, then no punishment will be, means the punishment will not be different. The punishment will be the same. I will get only punishment for 1 year. If like here you will not be awarded for 50 years of imprisonment if you have slapped a person 50 times. So you will have to consider all these things, like if you are committing theft, you are just committing, means you are slapping anyone, or you are doing any forgery, means if you are applying any forgery document, then also means at one time you will get punishment of that particular offense for a single time. Secondly, it is also provided here, if a person is convicted of several offenses, then the power of that court double up. The power of that court gets twice. It means if they are dealing with two or more section, means more than two section, if the court is dealing, then they have the power, means they have the double power. Like if a means like CJM, Chief Judicial Magistrate, is competent to provide punishment of 7 years, then he will be having power of means providing punishment for 14 years. If a first class magistrate provides 3 years of imprisonment, then he will be capable enough to provide 6 years of imprisonment. So that competent court can provide that punishment concurrently or consecutively to that particular accused. Now let's move on to section number 11, which talks about solitary confinement. A person cannot get solitary confinement, means kathor karavas, more than 3 months in his whole lifetime. Means if he is awarded with or if he is penalized with 6 months of imprisonment, then he can get 1 month of that solitary confinement. But if a person gets punishment more than 6 months and less than 1 year, then he can be penalized with 2 months of that solitary confinement. And if a person is imprisonment, if a person is penalized with more than 1 year of imprisonment, then he can be punished with 3 months of that solitary confinement. So it is all about the solitary confinement, which we have discussed here in section number 11. Now move on to section number 12, which talks about the limitation of this solitary confinement. So friends, it is clearly stated that no person, no accused can get more than 14 days solitary confinement at one time. And if he have spent 14 days in that solitary confinement, then he will have to spend equal amount of time outside that solitary confinement. And in the cases where a person is penalized with more than 3 months of imprisonment, then he or that accused person can get only 7 days of solitary confinement in 1 month, and equal amount of 7 days he will have to spend out of that solitary confinement. Now move on to section number 13, which talks about the enhanced punishment in several cases. Means if you commit any of the offense that comes under chapter number 10 or chapter number 17, if you commit that the same offense again, then you will be awarded with, means in chapter number 10 it talks about the offense related to coin and currency, and in chapter number 17 it talks about the offense relating to human property, means any property. If any person who has been convicted of that particular case under chapter number 10 or chapter 17, then he will get punishment of 10 years and he can also get punishment of life imprisonment. So friends, that's all for today. I have discussed all the sections here in chapter number 2, which were section number 4 to section number 13, which were earlier discussed in IPC in section number 53, 54, 55, 57, 60, 63 to 70 and 71 to 75. So friends, if you have any of suggestions, then you can comment in my comment box, and if you like my video, then you can subscribe my channel. And it is my first video in this English language, so do not judge me with my English speaking. And if you find me fast, then you can just check up your setting and you can just slow down the speed, And if you find me ki I am speaking very slowly, then you can just speed up that speed. So that's all for today. If you have any suggestions for me, please comment in the comment box. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.